University of Florida, Farrah and Farrah, Yucatan Guacamole, Baptist Health, and by EverBank. The Publix Tailgate Show starts right now.
Well, hello and good morning from the Hyundai Studios at EverBank Stadium in Jacksonville. I'm Brian Sexton along with Mike Dempsey. We welcome you to the first hour of the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. The Jaguars and Texans coming up 1 o'clock Eastern time from NRG Stadium in Houston. All right, so 0-3, short week, on the road, division leader. It feels like Groundhog Day.
Piece of cake.
Yeah. You know, it's funny. I wrote this last week. The Jaguars, in fact, I wrote it 2 weeks ago. The Jaguars were not a resilient team when last season ended. True. They couldn't find their footing when things went sideways in Miami. True. They got off to a slow start against the Browns. True. And we're slow the entire game in Buffalo. True. The storyline hasn't changed since the end of the third quarter in Miami for this team. They have not found a way to dig in and get back to a position of leading because they haven't.
Oh, you're right about that. And the thing is, Brian, that, initially it was the offense that was struggling in key situations, and the defense, at least even if it wasn't perfect, was keeping teams down on the scoreboard. You saw some signs of slippage in that first half against Cleveland when they were able to dominate time of possession. Right. But last week, giving up 5 touchdowns on 5 first-half drives is completely unacceptable. And, with the offense still sputtering, you're behind at the end of the first quarter. Game's over for this football team. They cannot get off to a slow start like that today.
Well, and it's introduced questions. To be honest with you, I didn't think this was a perfect team. I thought this was maybe a 10-7 or 11-6 football team this year.
Too.
A little bit better, right? Now they're going to fight to get back to 9-8 if that's possible for this team. But I thought they were a good enough football team that we wouldn't be talking about the coach or the quarterback. And yet, that's been the storyline all week. I'm sure on your show, the conversation about the coach, the offensive coordinator, and the quarterback didn't dissipate at all.
Oh, not at all, of course. The quarterback portion of that is getting louder and louder because Trevor Lawrence hasn't played well, hasn't responded after getting that big offseason contract. And I think it was highlighted by that missed opportunity with Brian Thomas last week when, look, we understand when you're under harassment, when the offensive line isn't giving you time, when you've got to abandon the pocket because of the pressure, it happens, right? But he had a clean pocket. He had a huge window to throw to. He had Brian Thomas streaking wide open and just flat missed.
That's a throw an NFL quarterback, a $55 million quarterback has to make.
99% of the time, right? I mean, you're going to miss 1 out of 100, but that can't I'm not going to guess that he's going to hit the next 99 now to make that up, So when the opportunities are there for a struggling offense, you have to take advantage.
The play before that was the fourth down play, and Doug went for it, and I understood why he did, right? Down 20-3. And you're at a moment where you got to do something. And we've been told since Trevor got here, the short yardage run, the 4th and 1, it's not what he does well. And yet I saw a desperation in him, the way he fought for that yard and got it. And I thought, okay, maybe we're going to see something here from him. Very next play was the interception. It tells you that he was rattled. And he's been rattled now for 2 weeks. The question is this team rattled? Are they at the point, Mike, where they're at, here we go again, the minute that something negative happens? Let's hear what Doug had to say, and then I'll get your thought.
I don't think we're there. I still see glimpses of good football, out there from time to time, and we've got to lean on those moments. We got to learn from those. But it just takes one play. We're real close to creating some takeaways, defensively. We've done better protecting the football in the last couple of weeks, but it just takes, just finding that one play, maybe that'll spark your team. So I don't think the psyche's bad or in that frame of mind yet.
I don't know if rattled is the word I would use, but I do think when you continue to get the same result and you get off these kind of starts or something goes wrong and you start anticipating, well, what's the next thing that's going to go wrong, right? And you do get – it's not so much it's rattled, it's kind of like here we go again. I don't know if Trevor was rattled as much, Brian, as I think nothing has been easy for the Jaguars offense this year. And when you finally have one, I almost think he got overexcited. Like, oh, my gosh, I got a wide open one. I can't – you start – all these thoughts that go through your head in the split second, or at least that feeling. And, man, I got to rifle that thing in there. And, obviously he sailed that, and as he has a tendency to do occasionally. And, unfortunately this one went right to Damar Hamlin. So, yeah, I think you have to avoid that. That's why, again, going back to that fast start today, you get behind early, you have an early turnover, you just have some bad luck, you start looking around and going, here we go again, and we're without Foye Oluokun, and we're starting to have a lot of attrition with some real key players on this team.
Darnell Savage won't play today. Oluokun is going to short-term IR. What that means for when he returns.
Tyson Campbell already there.
Yeah, exactly. This team is banged up physically and mentally. One more thought on Trevor, and Doug Peterson was asked about working with Trevor. Doug's obviously, we know, he played the game for a long time, played with Marino, played with Favre, was with Andy Reid. He's seen the good and the bad in this thing, and now he's working with a young quarterback, very highly paid quarterback under some pressure. He was asked about and spoke about working with Trevor.
I keep just encouraging him to take the lead with the team, and sometimes you got to be vulnerable, right? As a leader, and especially when you're going through stretches like we're going through right now, and be honest with yourself, and can take the criticism, but at the same time, I see him, working in practice, working with his players, working with us as coaches. The communication is always at an utmost high, and you just slowly dig yourself out.
Tough to change a person's personality,
yes,
right? But I do think Trevor Lawrence has been more vocal, more demonstrative this year, but still, I don't know if it rises to the level of what Doug Peterson wants, because as he said, we keep encouraging him to kind of take the lead, to be that guy. So I think it's a constant process. Trevor's a laid-back guy. Justin Herbert's a laid-back guy. He's had a lot of success throwing the football in this league as well. There are quarterbacks on the other end of the spectrum that have and don't have success. But I do think there are times when a quarterback has to say enough's enough, and just kind of give a little verbal butt kicking to his guys, and shake them out of whatever's going on. But you have to be playing well yourself to do that.
That's true. To be fair to Trevor, we see him in the news conferences, and we see the camera angles that they show us on TV. We don't necessarily know what he's saying in the locker room, or on the practice field, or on the airplane, or in the locker room at halftime. But you're right. I think I've told this story a couple times. In the preseason, getting ready for the television broadcast, sat with Trevor, and we talked specifically about this, about the vocal leadership that some of his teammates appreciated when he used it with them. And he said it's not his personality to jump guys, but I wonder if the frustration doesn't take over at some point and he doesn't do that. And if that is truly a turning point this season, or if it's just one more sign of things going south.
I do think we're starting to see it happen, and hopefully it's not going to be necessary, right? But if you're out there and you feel like guys are letting you down, they're making mistakes, this is not the way we practice during the week. Now, again, you have to be fulfilling your duties.
You can't say that enough.
Right, and because if you're not doing it,
right, if
you're not executing on a high level, people are going to go, what are you talking about, man? Look at yourself first, right? So you got to make sure your own house is in order a little bit. I don't think that there's any question the players on this team respect Trevor Lawrence, but it goes beyond just that. You've got to have a better level of performance. And I don't think he's been, tragic this year. He's protected the ball for the most part pretty well. And that's
the one turnover in 3 games.
Right. We harp on that with him, and he has
21
done a better
last year,
job.
by the way.
Exactly.
Just to put it in perspective
He's had
for people.
60 in 3 years.
Yeah.
Right. So, he's done much better. Mac Jones, for the handful of people who are like, hey, we got to take a look at this guy. He's played a handful of snaps. He's got as many turnovers so far this year. So, and I'm not trying to pick on Mac Jones here. It's just, Trevor, it's not just the turnovers or the lack thereof. It's the plays that you're making, the big plays. Josh Allen's also turned the ball over 60 times, the quarterback of the Bills, not our Josh Hines in the last 3 years. But he makes plays that make up for it overwhelmingly. We saw it last week. So, need more of that, and, I don't think there's one simple answer to fix this, Brian.
He knows it. He stood in front of the media this week on Wednesday and talked about the fact that for this team to play well, for any team in the NFL to play well consistently, the quarterback has got to play well, and he knows that he isn't playing well. He was asked about the confidence level in the locker room, and here's his response.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're frustrated, and the game the other night was just a disaster on pretty much every level, but we still have the confidence in our group, our coaches, our team, that's not going to change, and that can't change. I think that's when you have problems, when you lose that confidence and you start pointing the fingers, and there's been none of that. So we're staying together, and that's just the message, is just stick together. Just remember to have fun too. Like, this situations like this a lot of times make you get tight and tense, and be on your details and be locked in, and we got to prepare the right way and put everything into it during the week, but also have fun. We're playing a game, and we have an opportunity to do things that not many people get to do. So keeping that perspective and let that relax you and let you play better. Not to say that it doesn't matter, because it does, and we take a lot of pride in it, but you also do have to have the perspective. I think that helps you play better and looser, because you want to go out there and fly around and not be thinking about everything and being able to go play free.
Look, I'm not saying that having confidence isn't better. It is better than, just saying, oh, woe is me, nothing, because you're not going to win in those circumstances. No. But the confidence is great, but results matter a lot more. I mean, I don't know how you have a whole lot of confidence coming out of last week's game. You didn't perform well in any aspect. Well. Nothing, right? So, and I get what he's saying. They still believe they have talent. They do practice well. They see this, but it's not translating to the field on game day. So all this confidence ends up at a certain point being false bravado. Like, you got to perform and back that up on the field, and it's got to start today.
So last week, I'm sure you felt this when you were watching. It seemed like anything the Bills did was easy. They could run the ball, they could throw the ball, they could short any route they wanted, short, medium, long, anything they wanted to do work. Conversely, when you watch the Jaguars, it felt like every play they were doing with a 60-pound weight on their back. I mean, everything looked difficult. So I had a chance this week to ask Press Taylor, with that in mind, what are you confident in that you can get done this week with your offense?
We don't feel like there's anything that we have done that we just cannot correct or cannot get fixed as we move forward. We do believe that if we can just maintain consistency, do the little things right throughout the course of the game, that good things will happen. We're able to put it together in spurts, but you got to start the game fast. Getting yourself behind. I think we were behind the second time we touched the ball. It's 14-0 or something like that. So those situations, we got to step up and help our defense. If they give up an early score, or the other team goes down and scores early, we got to possess the ball. We got to move the football. We got to give them time to recover on the sideline. We got to put points on the board. That was a game that we needed to hold serve there, and we weren't able to do that for our defense. And it's everything throughout the course of a season that's going to happen. You got to play complementary football, but we just want to continue to try to do the right things over and over as we move forward.
I understand a coach needs to feel like you can correct the mistakes that are happening out there. But I think this is one thing. It certainly drives me crazy when I hear this correctable. You're going in the wrong direction. You scored 17 week one, then you scored 13. Now you scored 10. Okay, so if it's all correctable, where are the corrections? Why isn't it getting fixed? And, I mean, this is something that harkens back to me to the Gus Bradley era here. It was always, it's correctable. We're beating ourselves. Stop doing that then. Right. If it's really that simple and you can boil it down to that, then change what you're doing wrong and do it right. I know it's not that simple, but I get tired, and I think fans get tired of hearing that same mantra over and over.
I'll be interested to see if they do anything different with the offensive line today. Cam Robinson had a very rugged outing.
I think 8 pressures allowed.
Rugged's my way of trying to be nice. I mean, he really was not good. And Anton Harrison has not played well. And yet you're talking about a guy in Anton Harrison that came out of the gate in the preseason and looked like he was ready to take a major step forward. The offensive line has not played well. It just hasn't. That has to change for them to have confidence to be able to do what they want to do this week.
I would not say the offensive line as a whole has played well, but I think it's the opposite of what we expected. The tackles are the ones that are struggling more so than the interior 3. And, I think if you had said the interior 3 will play to the level they've played to so far this year, if you got what you expected out of the tackles, you'd been okay. You'd be middle of the pack. But the tackles have been the position that have let them down.
All right, and the Jaguars will play without Foye Oluokun on defense today. That's a big blow. Their leading tackler, a good player, and Ryan Nielsen knows that it just can't be an excuse.
It's a big challenge. Man, he's done a really good job this year. He's made a ton of plays flying around, getting his hands on footballs and disrupting and everything. So a really good player. Wish we had him. We don't. Next man up mentality. Next guys will go in there and they'll do a good job. Look forward to getting him back as soon as we can.
I mean, down in, down out, he might be the most consistent player on this football team at any position, right? Outside of the specialists, which are pretty exceptional at times. But Foye is a huge loss here, and it won't just be like Ventrell Miller's an exciting athlete. He can chase plays down. He can do all those things. Will this team be pointing fingers like, hey, you had that guy. No, I was supposed to have that guy. Foye gets him lined up, and that is something we've harped on over the last few years, that when he is not in the game, which is rare, they have issues with that, and hopefully that won't be the case for the next month.
And by the way, we are following the developments with Joe Mixon, the big back that signed in Houston this year, had a big day against this team for the Bengals last December. So we'll follow that one. It would be beneficial for the Jaguars.
Game
without
time
Foye,
decision is what they're saying.
If Mixon, who has an ankle, cannot go. All right, more sound from this week coming up in the second hour of the Publix Tailgate Show. That comes your way at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. But coming up next on the Publix Tailgate Show.
I feel like for us, it's more focus on us. We have to focus on ourselves individually, doing our job, being in the right spot, and things of that nature.
That's defensive end Trayvon Walker. He knows the D-line is going to have to be on point today at NRG Stadium. We'll hear from him coming up in this week's Baptist Health Player Interview. But next, CBS Sports senior writer Pete Prisco's perspective with Mike. This is the Publix Tailgate Show. You're listening to Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
When you show your home love with a natural gas water heater, it loves you right back with more cost-efficient, endless hot water.
Hon, hurry it up, please.
And right now, you'll love earning a cash rebate up to $700 when you install an energy-efficient natural gas water heater.
We're going to be late. Again.
What? Did you say something, hon?
To learn more and how to qualify, visit peoplesgas.com/rebates.
Sims Crane and Equipment is the Southeast premier crane rental company since 1959, serving Florida, Georgia, and Alabama with cranes up to 800 ton for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is the Tadano rough terrain crane dealer for the state of Florida. Inspired by the past, committed to the future. Choose Sims Crane and Equipment for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The creamiest, dreamiest soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy. For a refreshing delight supreme, look for Mr. Softy. The milkshakes and the sundaes and the cones are such a treat. Look out for the ice cream stand, enjoy it from your seat. The creamiest, dreamiest soft ice cream you get from Mr. Softy. For a refreshing delight supreme, look for Mr. Softy. S-O-F-T-E-E, Mr. Softy.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Paid for by FDOT.
Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Houston to take on the Texans this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's Fleming Island. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and The Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up a lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings. Before the game, after the game, and during the game.
Well, the Publix Tailgate Show rolls along here. Brian and Mike with you from the Hyundai Studios inside the Miller Electric Center in Jacksonville. 1 o'clock kickoff time for the Texans and Jags from NRG Stadium in Houston. Mike, we're coming to the quarter post, right? Almost the quarter post now in a 17-game season. I thought the Jags might be 2-2. I thought that was a legitimate expectation. Now they can, at 0-3, it seems like a massive fall, and it felt that way. If they can get to 1-3 and 1-0 in the division today with a win over the Texans, they could start to get a grip on this season, I think. It might seem like wishful thinking, but it could turn around in a heartbeat.
No, I think you're factually correct, right? But you reach a certain point. I mean, this is going to be the case for a while. Mathematically, hey,
Right.
there's still time. There's still time. Today is the huge one, though. You fall back 3 games and a tiebreaker to the Houston Texans. Yep. I mean, because I think you look at it right now, you start 0-3, Brian. The best path to the postseason is win your division. It's not competing with all these other teams, of some of which you've already lost the tiebreaker to for a wild card spot. So, reeling in the Texans is paramount here.
I think at 0-3, winning the division is the only way through, especially with 3 losses in the AFC.
Right.
I mean, mathematically, it probably isn't, but it seems like it should be at this point.
Well, you look at it, the teams they've lost to may not factor in. Who knows with Miami if they get Tua back or not? And with Cleveland, I just don't think they're a very good football team. Yeah. But again, that kind of highlights where the Jags are.
All right. You caught up with Pete Prisco. What's he think?
I did. And, you talk about those Miami and Cleveland losses. I've always felt that those are the games that linger with you a little bit longer because you can point to 1 or 2 plays. Of course, losing 47-10 last week to Buffalo, just started out with Pete and asked him if he thought it was easier to put that kind of loss behind him or behind the team compared to the nail-biters of the first 2 weeks.
I think it might be easier to put it behind because you embarrassed yourself. I mean, the entire organization was embarrassing for everybody in the country to see, and you get those opportunities, very rarely, and yet you go out and play like that. So I think from that standpoint, you get back to work, you say, hey, we can't have that happen again. So it could be easier to put it aside than maybe a tough loss.
All right, right now, I don't know if we could point to one thing that's really working on offense. Trevor Lawrence, the line, drops, what have you. When so many different things are going wrong at the same time, where do you begin to dig out of that hole?
Well, you pointed it out. They're all playing poorly, and it's hard to dig out of a hole when there's so many different things going wrong. And here's one thing I would start. I'd start trying to throw some passes into the middle of the field, some mesh routes against man coverage. Get your receivers to sit down against the zones. They do a terrible job of that. They run right through them. And Trevor's got to be, a guy that can stand in there and not move when he feels a little air around him. And the offensive line has to play better. I just think they're schematically, do some stuff in the middle of the field. Everything seems to be outs and up the sideline, and there's not bubble screens and stuff to the outside, wheel route to the outside. There's not a lot of opportunities in the middle of the field. And you go back to Miami, Mike. They hit Kirk for a big play down the middle of the field. Last week, the game was out of hand, but he hit Kirk in the middle of the field. Use the middle of the field. It's okay to throw in there. And I don't know if they're scared of Trevor throwing in there, but I think they need to start using more of the middle of the field.
How much of that is because Evan Ingram has not been available?
Well, that takes some of it away. But then when you lose a player like that, you got to compensate for it by putting somebody else in there. And we've seen. You saw. Okay, I'll give you an example on the cross to Thomas, the one where Trevor overshot him.
Mm-hmm.
He's open because he went clear across the field. He had time to make that throw, and he just hit a bad throw. Now the route might have been a little shallower than should have been, but it's a bad throw by Trevor Lawrence. That's something you have to hit, but it was also something that was open. And I think you have guys that can do that. I think they need to do more of it.
Do you think they are missing more open opportunities than even that? Is when you go back and watch the film, are you seeing guys running open? And whether it's because they don't have time to get to it in the progression or Trevor's just not seeing it, they're just not taking advantage of those.
Of all the pass plays last week, there were maybe 2 where he missed a guy that if he had, come back to his left or come back to his right. Mm-hmm. Okay, even the wheel route that he threw down the sideline, it wasn't the wheel route. It was the throw to Gabe Davis on the sideline. That's a one-on-one opportunity, and he just threw a bad ball. But if he doesn't passes on that and he doesn't take it, but it is a one-on-one shot, so I think in that scenario you take it. But he had Kirk on a crosser in the middle of the field, wide open. He might have caught that ball and raced right in for a touchdown. And you can almost see the frustration on Kirk's part when I don't know if he was upset that the throw was outside or was upset that the throw didn't go to him. But I think that was one you missed. But for the most part, guys aren't getting open, and they don't do a great job of scheming them open, or when there is a zone coverage, they're sitting down in the zone.
Well, for the first couple weeks, we could at least point to the defense keeping points off the board as a positive for this team. That all went out the window this past week, Pete. But the pass rush has an opportunity against C.J. Stroud, who's been sacked 11 times in 3 games. But do you have any confidence that this pass rush is going to be able to get after him? They didn't do it against Deshaun Watson, despite Cleveland giving up big sack totals in their other 2 games.
How many backups are they going to start? I mean, that's a whole nother issue that they're dealing with now. I mean, I just think when you look at it, you're supposed to have a defensive line with Armstead playing the 3 technique, those 2 pass rushers, and whoever else you want there as the body playing the 4th spot. And they don't play Armstead as a 3 technique. He plays end because he wanted to play end. That's ridiculous. I don't buy that. And the other guys aren't getting home. I mean, you paid a lot of money for Hines Allen. Now, he hasn't been bad, but he hasn't been a guy who's putting the quarterback on his behind. And Trayvon Walker, the first overall pick, should be getting more pressure. He hasn't been bad, but again, he's not, putting the quarterback on his butt enough. So I think when you saw what you did the other night, that was a disappointing performance by the defense, and they're banged up. I mean, you're banged up in the back end. The things you want to do on the back end, you can't do, in large part because they still try to do it, but they don't have the players to do it. Look at that cross to Coleman the other day. That was it, Brown trailing him across the field. That normally wouldn't be him. It was somebody else, but they had max protect. They had 2-man route, and he got open. And those are the kind of things that happen when you're playing with backups.
Yeah, and Keon Coleman's a 4.6 guy. It's not like he's a 4.2 running across the field, and he's tough to keep up with from that standpoint. Pete, anytime Foye Oluokun is off the field, I worry about the Jags just doing simple things like getting lined up properly. How big of a loss is it whenever he is out for this team?
Well, they take him out in games now, so that maybe they don't think that's that big a deal because they rotate guys in there like they're what do they call that package where they bring in what they do, they rotate guys in and out. It's like a hockey line sometimes. It's ridiculous. So yes, but to answer your question, Mike, I think they'll miss him. I mean, he is a guy that can help get them lined up. And here's the other thing, Devin Lloyd doesn't run very well. They get him caught in man-to-man situations and coverage. That's a bad matchup for him. So. Whoever steps in there, and I think it's going to be. It sounds like it's going to be Ventrell Miller starting.
Yes.
Right? Isn't that the way? Yeah. So, and again, he's played. It's not like he hasn't played. He's gotten snaps in the last couple games. So because they do rotate him in there. So it's your job. Go in there, but it's tough to replace a guy like Oluokun when it comes to lining everybody up.
All right, quickly, Pete, give us your prediction for today's game.
I think they'll play better, but I still don't think they're going to win the game. If the Texans had gone to the Vikings last week and maybe won that game, maybe you get a chance after that Monday nighter. But they're so injured, Mike. And not only that, coming on a short week, going back out on the road, playing a division rival who didn't play well last week, it's just not adding up very well. I think they're going to end up being 0-4, and that's a major concern for the organization.
It is a major concern, Brian. It's a major concern for everybody involved here, right? Not the way anybody anticipated this season going.
No, it really sends it sideways. And like we talked about, we didn't anticipate having conversations about the coach's job security just a month in. And yet when you look at the national news, it's all over the place.
Right. So it was one of the top headlines today on CBSSports.com. Will major changes be in store for the Jaguars if they don't start winning? Or I'm paraphrasing here, but certainly with one of only a handful of coaches, a couple of coaches have had back-to-back winning seasons for this organization. Doug Peterson is one of them, and here we are with this being a topic of conversation in the first month of the year.
Coaches hear that, players hear that, and it just creates even more pressure on a team that needs a little bit less of it at this point in time. You mentioned Trayvon Walker with Pete there. 2 sacks to start the season. Last 2 games hasn't impacted the quarterback nearly enough. He knows and told me this week that the defensive front is going to have to be ready for C.J. Stroud and head coach D'Amico Ryan's Texans group that caused them problems in 2023.
Well, it's all about just like it's always been about going in and correcting the things from the previous week. But last week, that one, it left a little stinger, obviously. But like you said, it's a short week coming in off of that short week. Watch the film, flush it, and now we're in a divisional opponent, Houston, which we get 2 games against every year. Now we have to get off to that start to take advantage of it early while we can.
Do you think a stinger is a good thing, or at 0-3, does it not matter what's next?
It's definitely fuel to the fire. I'll say that for sure. But for us, we know the type of players that we have on this team. We know what we are capable of. So it's just a little bit of soul searching. And then obviously, like it's been a division game, so it just makes that game, the next game, even more important.
You saw C.J. Stroud twice last year. Just give me a scouting report. How do you keep that guy from going crazy?
I mean, I feel like that the coaches over there, they do a great job of working with them, getting the ball out faster, things of that nature. They do a lot of great things on that side of the ball, but I feel like for us, it's more focus on us. We have to focus on ourselves individually, doing our job, being in the right spot, and things of that nature.
When we look at this defensive front in the preseason, we saw a group that could be dominant. Do you feel like you are close? And there are some moments in Miami and moments in the Cleveland game. Can you get back to that level and take it to the next level?
Most definitely, we can get to that level and take it to the next level, like I just said. For us, like I just want to continuously say is, for us, it's all about consistency. Once we get clicking, I feel like we'll be rolling from that point on, and we just have to continuously improve our individual play every single week in, week out. For us as a team in general, it's like we're changed. We're all linked in together. We have to play on one accord, complementary football, offense, defense, special teams. So it takes everyone coming together as a collective group to go out there and put on the show that we know we can.
The rotation has been a pretty big storyline. How's that worked for you? Do you appreciate it? Would you rather be on the field more? What's it mean to you?
Me, I'm a team guy. Obviously, it's definitely helpful to keep you fresh for the rushes once it gets to those situations. That way we can start to get out the field on third down and things of that sort. So I feel like it definitely has its positive impacts to it.
And finally, what would one win do? What would it mean to this football team right now?
Man, to this one win to this team that we have, I feel like it could really spark something major. For the simple fact of it's just been those little instances out of the first 3 weeks we showed some good things, but then again we put some bad things on tape. But once we get those good things continuously clicking, I feel like we could be one of the top teams in the NFL.
Find out if they can get things clicking today at NRG Stadium in Houston. Coming up in about 15 minutes, Hall of Famer Tony Baselli and Jeff Longeman join us from the broadcast booth. But up next,
BT has come a long way, and it's, half the reason is watching them their routine during the week, how they work at practice. So they've been, they're two great leaders of the offense, but also just for our room alone.
We'll hear from Jaguars wide receivers coach Chad Hull coming up next. The Jaguars and Texans are coming up from Texas. This is the Public Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub-platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Touchdown at Jaguars away games when you fly nonstop from Jacksonville International Airport. Join the Jaguars in Miami and Houston. Watch them win in Philly, Detroit, Nashville, and Las Vegas. All the other Jaguars games are just one short connection away. And if airport parking has you stressed, be sure to visit the Jax Airport website before traveling to the terminal. On it, you'll find information about the status of on-airport parking in real time. See if your favorite areas are available or if you need to call an audible. Visit flyjax.com for more information.
Frank Frangie here. When you want barbecue in Jacksonville, you want Bono's Pit Barbecue. You can find Bono's locations all around town and on game day at EverBank Stadium because Bono's is the official barbecue of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Over 70 years of authentic Southern Pit Barbecue. We are the local barbecue joint in BBQval for generations of people in Jacksonville. Go to bonosbarbq.com to learn more or call 904-880-8310 today. And remember, if you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Champions are built from the support and encouragement they get from the team around them. No one knows that better than Jacksonville Jaguars wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr.
As one of the nation's largest pediatric health systems, Nemours Children's Health gives hope to future champions every day to go well beyond their limits. Together, we can redefine children's health. We are Nemours Children's Health.
Hey fans, it's Tyson Campbell, cornerback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. This season, your game day is getting even tastier with Al's Pizza in the stadium. And every time we get a pick, you'll score. If the Jaguars get one interception, you'll enjoy buy one, get one free pizza at any Al's Pizza location Monday through Thursday after the home game. 2 interceptions, a free dessert. And 3 interceptions, that's a free appetizer. Just tell them you want the Jags pick. Up your game and get your Al's Pizza at the game or any of their locations.
It's storm season, and JEA is committed to keeping you informed. In the event of a storm, we'll text and email you about the status of your services. We use Facebook and Twitter to post real-time updates. Our live outage map on JEA.com lets you track restoration progress. And as crews work to restore services, our storm outreach team will be in local neighborhoods to answer your questions. Because as your community utility, JEA is here to keep you safe and connected. Your community, your utility.
Welcome back. The Publix Tailgate Show continues. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Brian and Mike with you from the Hyundai Studios. Jaguars and Texans kick off at 1 o'clock from Houston. And it's time now for our weekly commentary with Rick Ballou.
So here we are, week 4 in Houston, and the world is flat. If the Jaguars lose today, many believe that's it for Doug Peterson. He should be fired. Not me. It's a little too early. Winnable games with Indy and both in London. If it's still not any better, then all right. But today, Instead, for me, the question is this offense fixable? In 3 games this year, in the first quarter, the Jaguars have passed for a total of 40 yards. 40. All right, this past Monday night, after allowing a 10-play opening drive and a touchdown to Buffalo, the Jaguars responded with a 3-and-out. 3 plays, 1 yard. You go back to the opener in Miami. 3 plays, minus 14 yards. Week 2, the home opener against Cleveland. 5 plays, 15 yards. The Jaguars have a net of 2 yards in their first 3 drives this year. That is staggering. All right, this offense was built to be explosive. It has been anything but. Is it the scheme? Is it the play calling? Is it the offensive line? Is it the quarterback? Well, bottom line, far more questions than answers. Unfortunately, today they take on a Texas team, or the Houston Texans, that have been thoroughly embarrassed. They were last Sunday by Minnesota, and things that they heard this week there are exactly what the Jaguar players have heard back in Duval. Historically speaking, in the NFL, teams that have started the year 0-3 have only gone 4-162. Those 4, I mean, who actually ended up making it to the playoffs. By the way, the last team to do that, the Houston Texans, back in 2018. Nonetheless, what a huge game today. Enjoy it, everyone.
You can catch Rick Ballou on Into the Night with Rick Ballou, weeknights from 6 to 8 on 1010 XL. Well, the Jaguars offense, as we've all talked about, has the traits of a high-powered passing attack. What it doesn't have at this point of the season is the track record that bears that out. The quarterbacks and receivers were working after practice this week on the little details when I caught up and had a visit with wide receivers coach Chad Hall, who says it's the extra work, the little things, that gives him confidence in this thing turning around.
Honestly, I think it's bringing everybody a little bit closer. You know, times like this, you really got to first look at yourself. You know, first get yourself better, which gets your group better, then gets your side of the ball better, and then gets your team better. So everyone's just got to do a little extra. So I think everyone's just trying to figure out what more they can do individually that's going to help the team in the long run.
A little bit of extra. Is that mental? Is that physical? Or is it all of it?
I think it's both. You know, it always starts mentally. This game's too hard. So if you're not making the right, decisions mentally, if you're not dominating those controllables, as I like to use in my room, the physical part's already hard enough. And those mistakes are going to happen. And then, unfortunately, we've made, too many of both. But we definitely have to clean up the mental side, and then the physical side, we got to get better every day.
So you got a couple of new players, new tools in your arsenal this year. Let me ask you about them and start with Gabe Davis, obviously, a guy you knew well. What has he brought here this year so far?
Man, some leadership, especially in our room and even for the whole offense. He's a vocal leader, and he is all ball. So it starts with him first, and he takes accountability with everything that he does. And so then he has that voice, and people respect him for it. And also a physical toughness, for the offense as a whole and for our receiver room.
I would imagine that that's a great influence. Not that Christian Kirk isn't, but a great influence for your rookie, Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great example. Both of those two are. I mean, BT has come a long way, and it's, half the reason is watching them, their routine during the week, how they work at practice. So they've been, they're 2 great leaders of the offense, but also just for our room alone. they lead the room. So I'm lucky to have them.
Have you been at all surprised, and you studied him, and you've worked with him, but at how quickly he has come to be an impact player for this football team?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the hardest positions to transition from college to the NFL, because college, it's a lot of off coverage, and now it's just someone's in your face 70-80% of the time. But one thing that BT has always had is he's very intelligent and he's very smart. So the game, knowing what to do, processing the information, it comes easy for him. So then, guys like that you want to get in your building, because then you can work the technique. You can develop him on the field. But if you're having to spend time on knowing what to do, it's hard to develop, his physical traits on the field. So that's what was, I was really attracted to. And again, him and Gabe are two of the smartest. I mean, I think they're they're two of the smartest draft picks I've ever had. And Parker's in there as well. So when you have that, then you can work on their physical traits, and so that part becomes easier.
When you look at Gabe and when you look at BT and Parker and Kirk, you've got a varied group of size and talent and abilities. That's an asset for this football team.
Yeah, and they're all different. You kind of, in the receiver room, try to build a basketball team in that sense, where you don't want everyone to be able to do the same thing. And they all have their roles, and they're all, excel at them, and they're all selfless. They're not. They just want to win. They want, and we know we're supposed to generate yards, points. So we gotta step up and do better in that sense. But we just want to win.
Final thought: in your experience, all your years of playing and coaching, can one big play, could a big series ignite an offense that hasn't hit its potential yet?
Of course. I mean, this game is it's ebbs and flows, ups and downs. First week it kind of did what you're talking about to the Dolphins when, we had a turnover in the red zone. We were about to go up, 17 points or whatever it was, and that kind of ignited them. So it can go both ways. And the one good thing about this team is everyone just keeps their head down and work. That's not an issue. So we're going to continue to get better, and like you said, maybe it's just one spark play that really ignites this thing.
He brought up that one play, and there are two plays back-to-back in Miami, because I just felt, can't prove it, but I felt that this team has not been the same since that. They need something today.
I think we've all seen it, right? I think the irony is, as Chad Hull talks about, putting together like a basketball team where you don't want everybody to have the same skill set. The game of basketball is actually evolving towards exactly that, where guys don't have positions. It's positionless sport. Everybody has overlapping skill sets. But regardless, Christian Kirk finally got involved last week. Took too long, 3 weeks, but regardless, he did. Brian Thomas Jr.'s targets got upped significantly last week, so let's hope that's a trend. And it looks like Gabe Davis on track to play today. So still absent Evan Ingram, but the Jags look like they'll have their top three wide receivers ready to go.
Well, and they're going to need both offensive tackles to play well, too, because, Will Anderson and Danielle Hunter coming off both ends can look a lot like what we saw last week in Von Miller and Greg Rousseau.
Yeah, lead the league in pressures. Not always getting home and sacking the quarterback, but, you get enough opportunities, you're going to get your share.
All right. Well, if you're looking for the MVP of the truck game, you better check out the 2024 Ford F-150. It's loaded with impressive capability and game-changing tech. You can dominate work, play, and everything in between. Test drive an F-150 at your local Ford dealer. They're a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. At 11 o'clock, it's Hour 2 of the Publix Tailgate Show with J.P. Shadrick. But when we return, Jaguars analyst Jeff Lageman and Hall of Famer Tony Baselli join us from the broadcast booth. The Texans and Jaguars are on deck in Week 4 NFL action. You're listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub-platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's storm season, and JEA is committed to keeping you informed. In the event of a storm, We'll text and email you about the status of your services. We use Facebook and Twitter to post real-time updates. Our live outage map on JEA.com lets you track restoration progress. And as crews work to restore services, our storm outreach team will be in local neighborhoods to answer your questions. Because as your community utility, JEA is here to keep you safe and connected. Your community, your utility.
Navigating the current housing market and figuring out your best move when it comes to a mortgage isn't your full-time job, but it's one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make. That's where the experts at Jet Home Loans get into the game and coach you to your ultimate goal of getting not just the right loan, but the perfect loan for you, the home of your dreams. Jet Home Loans works with you all the way, from application to closing, making sure your game plan is perfect. Make the call to Jet Home Loans and let their team join your team to make your dreams take flight. Visit jethl.com.
Brooks Rehabilitation is proud to be the official rehabilitation partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We are here for them, and we are here for you. Ranked #1 physical rehabilitation hospital in Florida by U.S. News and World Report, our playbook is individualized treatment and exceptional care to get you back to living your life. Brooks has cutting-edge technology and therapy solutions in every care setting, treating sports injury, orthopedics, brain, spinal injuries, and more. Go beyond your expectations with Brooks Rehabilitation.
Want to make sure he gets to the game on time?
Tommy, your uniform is ready. Let's go.
Install a natural gas dryer, and you're guaranteed faster drying times and softer laundry. And now you can earn a valuable cash rebate up to $200 on an energy-efficient natural gas dryer. Show your home love with natural gas, and it loves you right back. To learn more and how to qualify, visit peoplesgas.com/rebates.
Sims Crane and Equipment is the Southeast premier crane rental company since 1959, serving Florida, Georgia, and Alabama with cranes up to 800 ton for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is the Tadano rough terrain crane dealer for the state of Florida. Inspired by the past, committed to the future. Choose Sims Crane and Equipment for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
And welcome back to the Publix Tailgate Show. Brian Sexton and Mike Dempsey with you from the Hyundai Studios in Jacksonville. Kickoff comes your way at 1 o'clock Eastern Time from NRG Stadium in Houston. Time now for the first rounds on us.
New York Jets, first-round choice. Jeff Lockerman.
Jacksonville Jaguars have selected tackle Southern California, Tony Vasilek.
The first round on us. The first rounds on us is presented by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history. Hi, guys. How are you?
Morning. Good. How you guys doing?
Well, we've got some energy this morning. Sunday tends to do that.
Love it.
So, last week when you saw the Bills on offense, it seemed like they could do anything. Everything looked easy for Josh Allen. What can the Jaguars do as we go to finding solutions? Presented by the University of Florida, the #1 university in the U.S. News and World Report's #1 state for education. What can the Jaguars do that might look easy on offense today? How can they make it easier for Trevor Lawrence?
Number one, run the football, right, Tony? The Texans' defense are really good on the edges, but up the middle, the defensive tackle spot, the linebacker spot, I think they're a little bit weak right there, and last week I really thought that the Jaguars would come out and establish the run against a Buffalo Bills team that wasn't very physical, but they didn't do that. But I hope they do that today, Tony. Come on.
Well, it's kind of – you have to look at both sides of the ball to do that, though. You can't get down – but you can't give up touchdowns every drive as a defense and then expect your offense to hang in there and just run the ball. But I agree with you, Jeff. I was surprised how they came out last week, throwing it right from the jump. But it's complementary football. They need to run the ball on offense. They need to control it, keep C.J. Stroud on the sideline. Then defensively, you got to get some pressure. You got to get some stops early in this game so that you can stay in a routine and play the type of game that you want to play. The Jaguars are not built today to win a shootout. that's not how we're playing right now. So you got to play good defense, get stops, and run the ball.
And I also would add this, in that, when you're struggling, which they are, okay, on both sides of the ball, you got to start better, okay? You got to gain some confidence early in this ball game. And, here's the numbers. I mean, in the first 3 games of the season, the first drives offensively, you've had 11 plays, you've gained 2 yards, you've had 1 first down, and Trevor's been 3 of 7 for 8 yards passing. Okay, that's 3 opening drives as an offense in 3 games, and you're talking about 2 yards that you've had. You've got to do better than that to build some confidence.
It goes both sides, though. It's not like the defense has come out outside of Miami. They did a good job early in that Miami game. But besides that, I mean, they couldn't get off the field in Cleveland. They gave up 5 straight touchdowns to the Bills. And so I agree with you. I think, Brian, Mike, what is probably the key of this game for me today is the fast start. You need some big plays on offense, and you need some stops on defense. And, hey, would it be so bad to get a turnover maybe?
I'm all for it. I'm all for it.
How about several? Guys, so I think we all agree on that, right? We need fast starts from the offense particularly, take some pressure off the defense, put some of their own points on the board. But how do you do that? Is it the mix of play calling? Is it guys just needing to execute better? Is it needing to line up with an attitude of we're going to run it whether you know it's coming or not? What can they do to get that fast start today?
Well, Mike, you just gave me a multiple choice question, and you forgot one. D, all of the above.
Okay.
You got to do everything you just said. I mean, it's about the players executing better, lining up, doing your assignment, executing the play, better play calling, better strategy, taking advantage of weaknesses of the opponent. I mean, it's all those things. And I'll add one more. How about some juice? Get some juice coming out of the locker room, some urgency. Like, we got to do it now. Like, there has to be that. It's not panic, but that urgent mentality like, hey, every play counts, and we got to start this thing out the right way.
And then Trevor's got to play better. I mean, it's just plain and simple. He's got to play better. I mean, look, the last time he's had a victory was going all the way back to November 26 here in this stadium that he's had a victory. I mean, that's 8 consecutive losses. I mean, he's got to play better, and if he doesn't play better, this team will not win today.
Guys, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Joe Mixon, who was listed as questionable with a sprained ankle, will not play today versus Jacksonville. So that's somewhat of a benefit to that defensive front 7. But obviously the Jags without one of their most reliable players in Foye Oluokun now being placed on IR, and hopefully his return will come after only 4 weeks. But what are you more concerned with, the play of Ventrell Miller or whomever is going to get this team lined up properly on defense?
B. I'm worried about getting them lined up, because, I mean, Foye, Mike, has been so good at making sure that this defense is lined up right for so many years, and it communicates a lot with the secondary, and so now that falls upon Devin Lloyd and Foye and Ventrell, and we've seen in the past that Devin has kind of struggled where he's had to kind of figure out where he's supposed to line up by himself. He's leaned on Foye a lot. Well, Ventrell and Devin aren't going to have that guy out on the field today, and they're going to have to coordinate the defense and get everybody on the same page. And look, I know Joe Mixon is out, and that helps. I mean, make no mistake about it. But you're talking about one of the most talented arms in the National Football League, and if you're not clean and assignment aware, then you've got no chance of stopping the passing game of C.J. Stroud and the Houston Texans.
And to add to that, though, you got to find a way to get to C.J. I mean, if you turn on the tape against the Vikings did 2 things very well. They mixed up coverage, and they confused C.J. Stroud a couple times, and then they got after him. They blitzed him. They won up front. They got him off his spot. They got him out of a rhythm. And, yes, you need that back half to be, tight on assignment and no mental errors and no alignment issues. But at some point, the 4 guys up front, someone beside Hines Allen, the last 2 has done a decent job of getting pressure. But you need Trayvon. You need Eric Armstead. You need interior push to impact CJ, and if you're not going to do that, then you got to dial up the blitz a little bit more, because if you let that kid sit back there in the pocket, Jeff, and play man like we did against Buffalo, it's
wear him out.
It's going to be a long day.
And the one thing you hope too is that the Texans kind of continue their trend with their offensive line.
A lot of penalties.
Yeah, they've had a lot of penalties, and I think as a team in the last 2 games, the Texans have had like 23 penalties, somewhere in that range. And Larry Tunsil had 5 by himself last week, and he's not playing well. But if he plays well, which he's capable of, and Titus Howard's on the other side, those are 2 good tackles.
So, guys, let's say the Jags pull it off and they get a win today in Houston. They won there last year. What can that do for this football team? How much can that mean? It's only 1-3, but how much will that one mean considering the opponent, the time it's coming at?
Well, I think it would mean everything. I mean, look, at the beginning of the year, you kind of set out your goals as a team, and the first one always at the top is win the division because, I mean, that's the path to the postseason. So if you win this game here today, okay, now you're 1-0 in the AFC South, and you're 1 game back from first place in the division. You know, on the flip side of that, look, if you lose, okay, you're 3 games behind. You know, so this game is so important, and it's the first step of digging yourself out of the hole.
I assume Tony agrees with that.
Well, I was trying to think of if I could add anything that would be meaningful, and I know we're probably a little heavy here, so I was going to shut up because I know you and Brian always make fun of me for saying too much and jumping in late. So I'm letting you guys run the show.
Term, Tony.
When has meaningful ever stopped you in the past? I think.
Hold on, let me just throw in a reason why Tony's a little quiet today. Okay. The guy was an absolute glutton last night.
That's true.
Dinner. I mean, I've never seen Baselli eat as much food in a long time as he had last night.
It was so good, I couldn't stop.
You gonna go walk some stairs before the broadcast?
No, I'm fasting.
Okay,
I'm on a forced fast.
That's not the first time I've heard that story, but I'll leave it at there. All right, guys, thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thanks.
See ya.
Have a great broadcast. And that'll do it for me. JP Shadrick is up next with hour number 2. You sit right there, Mike Dempsey. A lot more to come. Top stories of the day is next. The Jaguars and Texans at 1 o'clock Eastern. This is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
The kick is up. It's good!
Score winning sub deals this Jaguar season at Firehouse Subs. Receive 50% off on any sub when the Jaguars kick a field goal of 40 yards or more. It's a bold deal for the whole city. Download the Firehouse Subs app for offer details. Redeemable only at participating Jacksonville and Orlando area restaurants. Only available in the Firehouse Subs app.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that could happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone. The results of driving drunk are tragic. That's why law enforcement is out there looking for impaired drivers to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Drive sober or get pulled over.
Paid for by FDOT.
Football and Miller Lite. Duval's greatest pairing. Can cracks at kickoff. Tailgates going well past postgame. Sunday night overtime.
For the touchdown.
Followed by Monday morning pride. Knocking on bar tops for luck. Kicking back on any given Sunday. You never forget the way some things taste. Jags football tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. 2023 Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Hey Jags fans, Extreme isn't always about heat, it's about flavor. And 505 knows flavor. So wake up those sleepy taste buds with 505's new lineup of premium craft salsa. Powered by the bud-kicking boldness of fire-roasted Hatch Valley chilies, 505 sauces are more than enough to bulk up any simple spread. Ignite your sense of boldness with 505's all-new assortment of fiercely fiery flavors featuring 505's new black bean and corn craft salsa. And of course, 505's award-winning flagship flavor, Southwestern style.
The power of a great team starts with the right equipment, specialized skills, and the training to win. That's why ASAP Dental Care and the Jaguars have the home team advantage. At ASAP Dental Care, we follow our playbook to perfection to exceed your expectations. Count on us to be there for you 7 days a week to deliver full-service dental care. Score a winning smile with ASAP Dental Care today.
The Publix Tailgate Show continues right now.
It is hour 2 of the Publix Tailgate Show. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. It is week 4. We're closing in on the Jaguars and the Houston Texans. A 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff time at NRG Stadium in Houston. JP Shadrick with Mike Dempsey. We're at the Hyundai Studios at the Miller Electric Center. All right, the time for speeches is over, as Doug Peterson said this week. It's time for players to go play and win a football game.
That's probably honestly the case every week, right? But I mean, you try to do something to put a spark in a team, JP. You know, and after a while, you end up repeating the same words over and over. You can practice great. You got to take it to the football field on Sunday or Monday and perform as well. And the Jags just haven't done that. Not well enough to win. And last week went from being, you know, close and frustrating losses to utter catastrophe where nothing you did practically went right and you were never in that football game, and it really made you feel like you're not even close to being a contender in the AFC right now. Now, things can turn around, and teams, even good teams, get blown out in very successful seasons, but the Jags are running out of weeks right now if they're going to begin that turnaround.
Game day weather brought to you by the St. Johns River Water Management District. Florida's water, it's worth saving. Down in Houston today, a high temperature of 91, currently 75 degrees, of course, a retractable roof at NRG Stadium. Here in Jacksonville, fantastic day so far, 82 degrees, mostly sunny skies, temperature the high forecast around 90 degrees. Let's get to some of today's top stories, starting, of course, with a loss on Monday Night Football, 47-10 against the Bills. Head coach Doug Peterson, after the game the day after, said it's all on the table this week.
We have to take a hard look at ourselves first internally as far as coaching goes, and then making sure we are presenting the plans, great communication. And then, look, it's a two-way street, too. I mean, you know, coaches coach and players play. So we got to make sure our players are playing fast and not making the mistakes that are showing up.
And that was on Tuesday. The next day, Wednesday, first day of the next week, the process continues.
I mean, obviously, our sense of urgency is heightened, obviously, you know, at 0-3. I mean, that's not where we want it to be. And now we're facing a really good Houston football team on the road. It doesn't get any easier, you know. So I don't think I have to say much, you know, obviously, about these types of weeks. It's a matter of, you know, continuing to you know, trust our process and the standard we've set here and continue to work through it.
All right, it is early. There's a lot of football left. However, as you mentioned, you let this thing get too far down the tracks, you won't get it back on.
All right. I mean, we all know we don't need to cite chapter and verse on how difficult it is to make the playoffs if you start 0-3, 0-4. 0-4 is practically impossible, but it's an opportunity to get back within, you know, a game of the division lead, as crazy as that sounds. And we keep saying these things, and I feel like Jaguar fans think we're dangling this carrot out there that's never going to be reached. But it is true. If they are able to win today, and, you know, you may look at it, JP, and say, I don't know how they're going to be able to do that against Houston. But Houston got handled last week. They're down a couple of key offensive playmakers. Problem is the Jags are down some key playmakers as well. And when Doug Peterson talks about everything being on the table, that sounds like we're going to consider, you know, some lineup changes. Consider, right? I'm not saying definitely go that way, but how many of those are even very realistic when you've got your top corner out, your top linebacker out? You tinkered with the defensive tackle rotation a little bit. I think you could tinker with the offensive line if you wanted to, but basically your best guys are already out there, and, you know, just change for change's sake isn't going to make a reserve better than the starter.
Let's get to the quarterback now. Year 3 in this offense, of course, for Trevor Lawrence. There is a simple solution to get it jump-started.
Just comes down to us making the plays, and we haven't made them, and we haven't been able to get the momentum early. You know, I think each game we've had a 3-and-out to start the game, so just unacceptable for us. You know, we got to be able to start the game faster. We got to stay on the field to let our defense settle in too. You know, when you go 3-and-out, especially when you don't get the ball first, and you go 3-and-out, the defense was just on the field. Think about, you know, on Monday night, defense was on the field. Buffalo scored. We get the ball 3-and-out. Defense is right back on the field after a 6-minute drive to start. You know, so it makes it hard on the defense to settle in, and it just comes down to, like I said, the details, knowing the plan, being confident in that, and then playing fast, and then just making the plays that come to you. Don't get tight. Just go out there and make the plays that come to you.
Yeah, they have not had any fast starts this year. I mean, it is a 60-minute game, though. You can have a 3-and-out early and then figure some things out as the game goes. They haven't been able to do much of that either. That's the problem.
Yeah, look, yes, you do have time to overcome it. But, you know, in this case, you're down 14 in the blink of an eye. And, you know, you never stopped Buffalo. So, hey, the defense can do the same thing. Maybe don't give up that 6-minute touchdown drive to open up the game. Defense has not been able to get their opponent off the field for the last 2 first halves at all. Cleveland scored on their 3 possessions. Buffalo scored on all 5 of theirs. So it's got to be work on both sides. But I don't know what the formula is. We were just talking with Tony Baselli and Jeff Logman, JP. There's a laundry list of things they need to do better to get off to these fast starts. When you say, hey, just make the plays, well, okay, that means you got to block it better up front. Quarterback's got to recognize the progressions and who's getting open. Guys got to hang on to the football. All these different things where they've, taken turns kind of having their miscues all have to come together.
Christian Kirk, Jaguars wide receiver, had his best statistical game of the season last week on Monday night. He has the same approach, though, no matter if it's a division rival this week or not.
It's big because it's the next one. I do understand with where we're at as a football team. And I'm just focused on us getting better as a football team and just winning a football game. That's what I want to see from us, is going out there, starting fast and finishing. Yes, it being a divisional opponent does put a lot more, weight on it, but it's not something that, at least me personally, that I'm essentially acknowledging. I'm just acknowledging that we have another opportunity on Sunday, and we need to win a football game.
Yeah, that opportunity today against the Houston Texans, and it really starts up front on the offensive line. Certainly, they've been under the microscope this week, and left tackle Cam Robinson, who had some struggles a week ago, knows they have to improve and keep working up front.
It's knowing what we can do, obviously averaging what we are averaging rushing, but obviously understanding that we are 0-3. So we still got things we need to work on. We still got things we need to get better at. To a man, everybody in the locker room, myself, everybody in the locker room. So we just got to keep our head down and just trust our work and just keep working. It's very shocking. It's shocking, but I think the key is to not stay in it too long. We just got to keep working and just got to keep chopping wood and we're just trying to find solutions. So like I mentioned earlier, starting faster I think will be something that's huge for us. Just kind of gets us in the rhythm and it kind of just settles everything down. We're just gonna keep working. We're just gonna trust the work.
All right, they're gonna keep working. We heard that a few times there. That's fine. However, you're working this week against a defensive front that is very good. The edge rushers are fantastic. Daniil Hunter's right there near the top of the league when he's going. And then Will Anderson Jr., an up-and-coming young player who's, his 3rd overall pick. The guy can play.
I want to say Houston has 39 pressures of quarterbacks in 3 weeks, which leads the National Football League. So, yeah, they're going to be coming after you. And, look, all this, we're working, we're grinding, we're doing our thing. Play better, right? Cam Robinson is getting beat right now by all manner of guys, top-tier guys and non-top-tier guys. He gave up 8 pressures alone last week. If you do that today against the guys you just mentioned, you're going to get your quarterback killed. So all these guys need to look at themselves in the eye a little bit, look in the mirror, whatever it takes, and somehow find a way to do a better job, particularly the offensive tackles, with the man in front of them.
Let's hear from Trayvon Walker. Yes, division games are a step up for the Jags.
One, it's still early in the season. Like you say, we have Houston coming up this week. This pops off our divisional opponent play. So for us, our number one goal has always been to take care of our division first. We do that, and everything else kind of triggers into its place. So, yeah, that's that.
All right, obviously last week, far from the best defensive game this team has ever played, giving up 47 points. Easy to say. But let's start up front on this defensive line. Tackle play on the interior, inconsistent. The edge rushing has been also inconsistent. Josh Hines-Allen has some moments. Trayvon Walker didn't do much of anything last week. So as a whole up front, this is a group that if things are going to change on defense, it starts right there with those first 4.
You have to get after the quarterback. And, whether it's those 4, and if they're not getting it done, does Ryan Nielsen need to dial up a few extra blitz packages? Maybe so. But I think the disappointing thing, when you look back at what Cleveland's been unable to do in terms of protecting Deshaun Watson in the 2 games outside of the game that they played the Jags, they've given up 14 sacks in those 2 games. Jags got him twice. Now, C.J. Stroud has been sacked only 1 fewer time than Trevor Lawrence has this year, 11 times. And Minnesota was all over him last week, forced him into a couple of interceptions. So it's there. The opportunity is there. I'm not saying you can just take it, but the offensive line for the Texans has not been great. They've been penalty-plagued this year. You got to rise above and find a way to get pressure consistently on C.J. Stroud today, or it's going to be a long afternoon.
There you have it, some of the top sound of the week. Jags fans can't make the game. We get it. You can easily donate your Jags tickets to VetTix military veterans in the community through the Jaguars ticketing account page. Select more on the ticket page and select the game you'd like to donate. VetTix tickets for troops. Let's head to NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas. Kai Stevens standing by, Jaguars reporter in the broadcast booth ahead of this AFC South showdown. Kai, how are things in Houston today?
Good morning, gentlemen. Things are good. Things are good. Obviously, this week has been pretty tough, I think, for everybody around the team. So exciting to hopefully get them back on the field and see something a little bit different than what we've seen.
You know, this offense, Kai, is without one of the weapons that they have counted on, and Evan Ingram, the tight end, and you know that's a big miss right now for the Jags with a hamstring injury a couple weeks ago in the pregame warmups. It's unfortunate, though. He was in the locker room this week talking with the media, and he's just got a pretty good big picture view of what this team needs to do to get back on track.
I think the biggest thing for me, I think obviously Evans missed in the offense. For me, it was, you know, the role that he plays kind of in leadership as well. Like having played in New York, having played in an environment where wins are expected and that pressure is on you constantly. Obviously this team was built and has been paid and there are a lot of expectations, and he had a unique way of kind of talking about it. You can't expect something to just magically change. It's really about earning your way, earning a win.
Go earn some success. Go do it what we have to do to get that success. And I think in that, there'll be a remembrance of who we are, the way we work, and what we're capable of. You know, you get in situations like this where everything seems like it's going the wrong way. You know, that can happen. But we have to go earn that. We're right there. We're right there. Obviously, the other night didn't go well, but we're going to flush that. Like I said, in the division, we have every opportunity to go earn everything that we want.
Yeah, I mean, they just got to go out there and do it. We've heard that a lot from the coaches this week. We've heard that from the locker room. Guys got to play better, execute, and at some point the rubber's got to hit the road.
And today's got to be the day, right? So as bad as they have been, if they can get a win today in the division, a win here can change a lot of things. And that's not going to make everything magically better. But as you mentioned, sometimes when you get in this spiral kind of thing, you lose your identity, you don't know where you are, you feel everything feels really, really hard, and sometimes just one win can be the catalyst to getting some of this stuff fixed and making things seem more feasible to you. It's not the end of the world all the time. So yes, is it going to be a tall task? Absolutely. But I mean, if you want to make something of this season, I think you really need to do that today.
Kai Stevens with us in Houston, and you just mentioned that it sometimes just feels so hard and such a grind, especially in the offensive side, to move the football and stay on the field. I mean, last week they had the drive where they go in like 13 plays, 14 plays early in the game. They're down 2 scores already, and then there's an illegal formation, and then they have to settle for a field goal. But it's a 14-play field goal drive, and it just felt like it took forever. You know, how do you begin to make this thing seem easier on offense? That's a huge question that they haven't found an answer for yet.
Obviously, I don't think any of us have the exact answer. We would have figured it out by now. But I think it is important for them to stay on the field. So, yeah, that was frustrating. They only got a field goal out of that. But I think they need to use that kind of as it doesn't need to be a negative thing. They need to use that more as a positive, I think, because sometimes when it's the 3 and outs that get me. It's like, you're like, well, what did we even – like, nothing happened. Like, it's like 30 seconds later and the defense is back on the field. So, kind of using that time on the field to just be like, even if it is inch by inch by inch, you're going to get there eventually, and kind of just then actually capitalizing when you get into the red zone is huge and getting scores out of it. But I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of, I'm sure there's many philosophies. I'm sure the listeners have a lot of ideas too, but I wish I had the magic answer.
And then on the other side, Kai, final thought with you here, the Jaguars defense and certainly the secondary. They've had some injuries back there early in the season, of course. Savage not going, didn't even travel with the team this week again. Tyson Campbell's still on injured reserve. And there's a lot of younger, newer faces that have had some playing time the last couple weeks. This is also a Texans receiver group that can fly and open up some things on the back end. And C.J. Stroud has that mentality and mindset to go attack. And, you know, I'm curious about this matchup today. And this is obviously the one to watch. Stroud and the way he plays against this Jaguars secondary and the wide receivers.
This is why it's the secondary that we have out there per injuries is what it's going to be. Obviously, there's a great wide receiving core in Houston. I think this is why the pass rush is so important. You need to get to him, and you need to get to him early because, as we've seen, he can be sacked. He's been sacked a lot, and this is a big day for, you know, Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker, I think, Eric Armstead as well. You got to get home today.
Got to get home against C.J. Stroud. Kai, well done. We'll talk to you a little bit later.
Thanks, guys.
Kai Stevens joining us from NRG Stadium in Houston, Texas, and plenty more to come. We're about 15 minutes away from the inactives. We'll get those to you. But up next, CBS Sports play-by-play announcer Andrew Catalon with an early look at this AFC South matchup between the Jaguars and the Texans. It's a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff time in Week 4. This is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Sims Crane and Equipment is the Southeast premier crane rental company since 1959, serving Florida, Georgia, and Alabama with cranes up to 800 ton for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is the Tadano rough terrain crane dealer for the state of Florida. Inspired by the past, committed to the future. Choose Sims Crane and Equipment for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Houston to take on the Texans this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's Fleming Island. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and The Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game. At Publix, you can tackle everything from pregame prep to postgame cleanup with prices that are never out of bounds. This week at Publix, save $10 with a digital coupon when you spend $40 on select P&G products. Tackle everything from pregame prep with brands like Crest, Head & Shoulders, and Old Spice to postgame cleanup with brands like Bounty, Dawn, Tide, and Febreze. Clip your digital coupon now. Available at Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
Brooks Rehabilitation is proud to be the official rehabilitation partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. We are here for them, and we are here for you. Ranked #1 physical rehabilitation hospital in Florida by U.S. News and World Report, our playbook is individualized treatment and exceptional care to get you back to living your life. Brooks has cutting-edge technology and therapy solutions in every care setting, treating sports injury, orthopedics, brain, spinal injuries, and more. Go beyond your expectations with Brooks Rehabilitation.
Headquartered in Jacksonville, Florida, CSI Companies partners with leading healthcare and technology organizations nationwide to deliver workforce solutions. CSI prides itself on building meaningful relationships and provides personalized operations to fuel the success of businesses, both big and small. Whether it's finding the right talent for a job or seamlessly managing a project from start to finish, CSI has 3 decades of experience in getting the job done. This is your workforce solutions reimagined. Visit CSICompanies.com. JP Shadrick with Mike Dempsey from the Hyundai Studios. The Publix Tailgate Show continues. We are closing in on Week 4. It's a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff time for the Jaguars and the Houston Texans. Coming up October 1st, that's Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m., head to the Publix in the Exchange at E-Town, and you will be able to meet Brian Thomas Jr., Jarian Jones, Mason Smith, and Jordan Jefferson of the Jaguars, as well as Jackson DeVille and members of the Roar. It's a special appearance as the Jags gear up for the home game next week against the Colts. That's the Publix at 11205 E-Town Parkway, Tuesday, October 1st, 5 to 6 p.m. Brian Thomas, Jarian Jones, Mason Smith, Jordan Jefferson, Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. Let's go around the NFL.
All right, a lot going on. As always, JP, the Cowboys opened Week 4 with a 20-15 win over the New York Giants, but it proved to be a costly one for Dallas edge rusher DeMarcus Lawrence, likely to go on injured reserve with a foot sprain that he suffered in the game, while star edge player Micah Parsons had a high ankle sprain that looks like it'll keep him out for at least one game, possibly longer. Parsons is going to rest and be reevaluated after being off his feet for the next 7 to 10 days. Meanwhile, The quarterback watch with the New York Giants is on. Daniel Jones, less than stellar play, has opened the door. A lot of NFL insiders speculating that it's when, not if, Drew Lock will get a chance to help that team turn things around at the QB position. Only one other AFC South team in action today in addition to the Jags and Texans. That would be the 1-2 Indianapolis Colts hosting the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers. Despite helping the Colts to the first win of the season last week, quarterback Anthony Richardson comes into Week 4 with a league-high 6 interceptions. Meanwhile, the winless Tennessee Titans will be in action as part of a Monday Night Football doubleheader tomorrow. They'll travel to Miami to face the 1-2 Dolphins, who will be starting the recently acquired Tyler Huntley at quarterback in place of the injured Skylar Thompson, who, of course, was playing in place of the injured Tua Tagovailoa. Green Bay quarterback Jordan Love expected to return today after missing the last 2 games due to a knee injury that he suffered at the end of the Packers' season-opening loss to the Eagles in Brazil. Green Bay lost that game to Philadelphia, but has since gone 2-0 behind backup Malik Willis, ironically enough. The Packers play host to undefeated division rival Minnesota at 1 p.m. Eastern time today. A week after Las Vegas head coach Antonio Pierce said some of his players looked like they were making business decisions in the Raiders' loss to the previously winless Carolina Panthers, Vegas will likely be without arguably its 2 best players, certainly without Devontae Adams, the wide receiver ruled out and is said to be week-to-week with a hamstring injury. Meanwhile, defensive end Max Crosby has an ankle issue that has him listed as doubtful, although he did play in a game last year in which he was listed as doubtful and hates missing games. Making business decisions, of course, a euphemism for players who don't go all out in an effort to avoid injury. The Raiders host the Cleveland Browns later today. Many complain that the league's increased focus on safety has made it harder than ever to play defense without being fined, but the NFL will also come after players on the offensive side of the ball. Green Bay running back Josh Jacobs, Dallas wide receiver CeeDee Lamb fined a total of more than $67,000 for a pair of incidents last week in which it was determined that those players lowered their heads to initiate contact with a defender. Jacobs, in particular, has been a repeat offender of this, and the NFL reportedly warned him in the offseason that continued instances of unnecessary roughness could lead to him facing a suspension, but nothing forthcoming right now. And finally, the Rams fined $100,000 after San Francisco 49er wideout Brandon Ayuk was shoved on the L.A. sideline in the final play of Los Angeles' 27-24 win last Sunday. The fine was as high as it was because the incident involved cornerback Darian Kendrick, who's on injured reserve, and NFL teams are being held responsible by the league for actions of non-active personnel. Kendrick also fined about $5,000, but the team gets $100,000 for just a simple shove on the sidelines at the end.
If you're not in the game, stay out of the game.
Honestly, I'm not even sure why you have to have injured reserve guys on the sideline.
A nice suite
to begin with,
upstairs.
but yes, if you're not in the game, don't affect the game.
There you have it. Look around the National Football League. Andrew Catalan is the play-by-play announcer for CBS Sports today, and of course, he's done so many Jaguars and AFC South games over the last decade or so. But we caught up this week and started with what stood out the most about the blowout loss for the Jags on Monday Night Football.
I've been in Buffalo so many times, and I'm certainly not making excuses for walk into. I just feel, having been in Buffalo so many times, and I'm certainly not making excuses for the Jaguars, but it's just a very difficult place to walk into on Monday night in prime time. And I feel like, and Trevor Lawrence has even said this, they had to get out on top early. And when they did not do that, I feel like it can easily fall off quickly in Buffalo. Look, you can point to whatever you want. I mean, 5 touchdowns in the first 5 possessions, the Trevor Lawrence interception, the protection, the injuries. It was ugly. There's no other way around it. The Jaguars have said as much. I think it's one of those games where you just got to quickly move on, and certainly they've had a short week. Maybe that helps them here against the Texans, because that game was a nightmare, and they have to forget it as quickly as they can.
There's a lot of football left in this season. However, there are back-to-back division games. Houston this week, of course. Indy's coming to Jacksonville next week. If for some reason those don't go the right way for the Jaguars, they're 0-5, headed to London, and 2 division losses, 5 AFC losses. I mean, this is piling up in a hurry. It's crazy to say the season's on the brink in week 4, but it kind of is feeling that way. What do you think?
Yeah, this is a big one. There's no doubt about it. I mean, it's so hard for me to believe that last November I called the Jaguars-Texans game in Houston, Great game. Jacksonville won. I remember walking out of that game thinking, wow, Jaguars are 8-3, but this Texans team will be coming along nicely in the future. And then to think about what has happened since that day and how the Jaguars only have one win since then. Texans went on to win the division. I mean, I think maybe if you're a Jaguars fan, maybe everything comes full circle, right? You're back in Houston where you had that beautiful win last Thanksgiving weekend. They have to hope that some of those good memories come back, because you're right. You know, you hate to say the season's over in September, and I don't believe it is, but this is a big game coming up here against the Texans.
Andrew Cattle on CBS Sports with us. Have you seen the Texans yet this year? And what stands out about Houston? I mean, obviously CJ Stroud is priority number one.
Yeah, I had him week one, so I did get my AFC South taste week one when they were in Indianapolis against the Colts. It was a great game. You know, I think the thing that stood out to me was what Joe Mixon provided in the run game, and really just how much the run game sets up the rest of their offense. And they really didn't have that weeks 2 against the Bears and week 3 against the Vikings. So I feel like for Houston, if they can get that run game going and then play off of that, they're a very dangerous offense. When you don't have the run game working, and last week Mixon didn't play, Cam Akers was the starter, you know, their offense looks a little different, but it's still a very talented team. They have really good pieces on both sides of the football. Danielle Hunter, I think, is a fantastic addition. And I expect that they'll be one of those teams we'll be talking about in January, you know, come playoff time. I think they're that good.
How about the mindset of D'Amico Ryans, a guy who's played it, coached it for a long time, and now finally has his opportunity as the head man in charge? And what do you like about D'Amico?
Yeah, I think the players love playing for him. He's, you know, I guess the term players coach gets thrown around a lot, but I feel like he is very relatable for the player. He treats them well. There's a passion, there's a fire about him that I think galvanizes this Texans team. And, you know, I think anytime you're starting out as a head coach, there'll be little things like whether it's challenges or strategy that you take, you know, a close eye on. As he continues to feel his way through that, I think he's a really good coach.
Andrew Catalon with us. Doug Peterson on the other side, right? I mean, just seeing his press conference the other day on Tuesday, I guess the day after the team got back from Buffalo, he still just seemed disheveled with everything that had happened on Monday. I haven't quite seen him like that in a little while. I don't know if this is uncharted territory for Doug, but it's not territory you want to be in. I'll put it that way. But he's a guy that has done it before. He's rallied teams in the past. I'm curious your thoughts on Doug Peterson's ability to do that and the challenge at hand compared to some in the past for him. And how does he circle the wagons this time?
Yeah, I have confidence in him. We've seen him do it. I think he can do it again. I like what he said in that press conference you mentioned on Tuesday about enough with the speeches. There's no rah-rah. We got to go out and play. And they really just have to kind of, I know it's cliched, but a good start would mean so much for this team. Like if the Texans get out to a 14-0 lead, you can just see the domino and the spiral. Jacksonville has to come out, establish who they are, get some points early, you know, get the guys going. And I think Doug Peterson, with his play calling and with his motivation, has a chance to do that in this game. But I think it's super important for them to get off to a good start.
It's a full conversation with him on the official Jaguars Podcast Network and Jaguars YouTube. Always a pleasure to visit with Andrew, a long time around Jaguars football on CBS and the AFC South. Plenty ahead. Inactives are coming up. We'll go back to Houston as well. Bucky Brooks and John Oehser are standing by for a pregame huddle up. And we're about an hour and a half away from the 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff time for the Jags and the Texans in Week 4. This is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub-platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Houston to take on the Texans this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's Fleming Island. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and the Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game.
Big Number 1 Duval Ford is trusted by Duval families, Duval businesses, and law enforcement across Florida. We are Jacksonville's largest Ford dealer by Ford sales, with the biggest service facility to keep everything in your driveway on the road. Shop Big Number 1 Duval Ford on Cassett Avenue for our low prices and nationally recognized service first experience. Big Number 1 Duval Ford, proudly serving Duval since 1916.
Calling all loyal Jags fans and loyal Gate customers, football is back. And you and 3 friends could win a chance to meet Trevor Lawrence. Entering is easy. Just buy any 5 28-ounce Gatorade or Gatorade Zero products at Gate with your MyGate Rewards app, and you'll be automatically entered. Not a MyGate Rewards member? Download the app and sign up today. See store for details. Alternate entry available at GatoradePromos.com/TLAW.
Touchdown at Jaguars away games when you fly nonstop from Jacksonville International Airport. Join the Jaguars in Miami and Houston. Watch them win in Philly, Detroit, Nashville, and Las Vegas. All the other Jaguars games are just one short connection away. And if airport parking has you stressed, be sure to visit the Jax Airport website before traveling to the terminal. On it, you'll find information about the status of on-airport parking in real time. See if your favorite areas are available or if you need to call an audible. Visit flyjax.com for more information. Tackle your marketing needs with Kessler Creative. Providing direct mail services for more than a decade, Kessler has a wide range of services from small mailers to large banners and signs. Draft Kessler as your first pick to receive the best targeted mail list. Elevate your business and be on the winning team with Kessler Creative. Kessler Creative. Results-driven marketing and proud partner of your Jacksonville Jaguars.
JP Shadrick with Mike Dempsey from the Hyundai Studios. The Publix Tailgate Show continues. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure. The Jaguars and the Texans coming up with a 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff time at NRG Stadium in Houston. The inactives are coming soon for the Jaguars. Not out officially yet, but the Houston Texans are. What do you got?
Oh, we got them. 3 starters out for the Texans, including Tank Dell, who starts in 3 wide receiver sets, which is their primary formation. We knew he was going to be ruled out. Joe Mixon was questionable after getting in a limited practice on Friday, and backing up earlier reports from today, he is officially not going to play today, nor will backup running back Damian Pierce play. So it's going to be a combination of Cam Akers and former Jaguar Dare Ogunbowale coming out of the backfield. Safety Jimmy Ward, another starter for this team, also down for the Texans today. Backup linebacker Jamal Hill and backup guard Nick Broker also inactive.
So the Jaguars inactives are now in officially. Darnell Savage did not make the trip with the quadriceps injury, the safety. He will not play. Evan Ingram out again with a hamstring issue he had a couple weeks ago in a pregame warm-up. Will not play. Devin Lloyd inactive today for the Jaguars. Was on the injury report later this week, but we were told it was soreness. Something happened, apparently. We'll see. I guess we'll go to Houston in a second, see if they have anything there. But Devin Lloyd will not play today. Miles Cole, defensive end, is out. Javon Foster, rookie offensive lineman. Cole Van Lannen and Jordan Jefferson, rookie defensive tackle. Osezi Otomewo is up today for the Jacksonville Jaguars. There you have it. Inactives are in. Let's go to NRG Stadium in Houston, and Bucky Brooks and John Oehser are standing by. And, gentlemen, the Jags are running out of linebackers. Devin Lloyd's inactive today. Good afternoon. Good morning.
What's happening, guys?
Yeah,
what's going on?
They're down linebackers. They have Ventrell Miller and Chad Muma as their frontline guys, and I assume they'll get them other load of the reps, but
they get a load of reps. We may see May see more DBs on the field, may see some dime packages, which might actually be a good thing if the Jags are going to continue to play a bunch of man-to-man. You got to match up on those backs coming out the backfield.
Guys, a lot of talk this week about how the Jags need to solve this early 3-and-out situation that the offense has had. What would be your number one suggestion, Bucky and John, for this offense to get off to a fast start?
Get a first down. No. I mean, and they've had one on their first 3 series this year. Meaning one on the first series of the first 3 games. And what would be the suggestion? Some short passes to get Trevor into a rhythm. That's usually the way you go with that. Bucky, I guess whatever play, just make sure that it's a play he likes and how you go with it.
Couple things. You want to play the hits, meaning I'm going right to number 16. I'm asking him, what plays do you like? How do you want us to come out? What are your favorites? Anything that you're questionable about or you have issues with, you don't see it right, let's throw it out. I only want to call the plays that you feel great about. Secondly, I want to go more up-tempo. Trevor has always played in up-tempo offenses from his time at Clemson. I want to settle him in. I want to play faster. I want to put it more on his plate while simplifying it because when you go faster, the defense can't do all the exotics. I think we should play with a little more tempo, a little more pace to that.
And, Bucky, some of this is they really, in the offseason, early in the season, they really came in wanting to establish the run. Sometimes when you're wanting to establish the run, you sometimes have to, I guess, sacrifice early, if you will, and understand that you might not get it, but you're trying to establish something later. So maybe go away from that a little bit, get Trevor a couple of completions and a first down before you sort of dig into the running game. You follow me?
Oh, I'm with you on that. The other part about it is it comes down to players, not plays. So if I'm the coaching staff, hey, let's talk about our team personnel-wise. Who are our best players? Well, you know what? They need to touch the ball the majority of the time today. Everybody else, sit in line. But the ball should go to the best players today. If you want to get out the losing streak, let your best players dictate whether you win or lose today.
Well, in order for the best players to have time to get the football, the offensive line has to step up and play well against a pretty good Texans defensive front, especially on the edges. I mean, Danielle Hunter is right there, a fantastic player, and then Will Anderson Jr. is a number 3 overall pick for a reason. And I was talking to Cam Robinson in the locker room this week, guys, about those two, and he said Anderson's motor just never stops, and then Danielle Hunter is a top-tier pass rusher. So the tackle play today must be very, very good, or better than it's been. It has not been up to par so far. What do you think?
No, they've sucked. They haven't been good. And the offense is going to go as the offensive line goes, and the offensive line has not performed well. And so we can talk about Trevor Lawrence and all the weapons on the outside, but if they're getting whooped up front, it is all for naught. So Cam Robinson, Anton Harrison, Brandon Scherf and company, they need to play better. And so whatever the challenge is in terms of on the other side, they need to step up and handle it. To me, man, this is an onions game. Everybody got to drop their onions today. If they're going to win, it's because everyone decides that they are tired of losing, and today is going to be the day it changes. If not, it's going to be another loss.
Yeah, it's sometimes in the NFL you look at a game and you think, boy, this matchup is just horrendous. When you look at it on paper, the way that Jaguars tackles have played and the way the Texans edges have played would make you think that there's just no shot. I mean, based on the first 3 games. But it's the National Football League, and as Bucky said, sometimes the guys in those negative matchups, if you will, step up and play like pros, and that's what Anton Harrison and Cam Robinson and the Jaguars offensive line has to do today. They have to play better than they have all season, better than people expect them to.
The other side of that coin is the Jags need to get pressure on C.J. Stroud, and that has been doable this year. He's been sacked 11 times. Minnesota was all over him last week and forced him into a couple of turnovers. Bucky, they haven't gotten home with 4 consistently this year. If they're not able to early in this game, do you expect Ryan Nielsen to dial up a few more blitz packages?
I think you got to be willing to do whatever it takes to get out of here with a dub. And so that means you got to dial it up a little more to increase the pressure, then you have to do it. You're doing that knowing that you got young guys in the back end and man-to-man, and there could be some communication issues and those things, so you got to get that sorted. But, yeah, if you can't get home with 4, you got to bring 5, you got to bring 6. But you have to impact the quarterback. What you saw last week from this Texans team against the Minnesota Vikings, Brian Flores dictated turns by bringing pressure and then falling out in a drop 8 defense. You got to heat CJ up. to make sure his clock quickens, and then you play games with him in that regard.
Yeah, I think you wonder is the book on the Texans a little bit this year has been, as Bucky said, drop 8. It's what the Jaguars did when they were effective against Stroud last year in Houston. Not really the MO of this defense. So how much do they come off of that? If they play more man, how effective is it? I think it's a big storyline to watch today because teams have been relatively effective against Stroud and this team, playing more of a shell, dropping everything back and making him beat you down the field. We'll see what direction it goes today. I think it's an interesting storyline.
Yeah, guys, obviously Foye Oluokun is out today. He normally wears the sticker on the back for the communication. So where are they on the defensive side today in that regard? You're talking about playing defense in the back end, and somebody's got to coordinate all that out there in the huddle, right? Who is it?
Good question. It's a good question. It'd be interesting to see who they put the green dot on. I would say if you don't feel good about Ventrell Miller or Chad Muma wearing the green dot, the natural candidate to me would be Andre Sisco because the safety has to tie everything in there. And because he's been on the field for a few years, because he is a high IQ player, I would give him the responsibilities of making sure that everyone is coordinated and in the right spot.
Agreed. And we'll see how that goes today.
We will see how that goes today, guys. Bucky, to your point about guys just need to show up and decide it's time to win a football game. Are you concerned with the Jags' inability when they kind of get punched in the mouth early to not respond well and to, maybe if that happens again today, have that here we go again mentality?
Yeah, like that's something that you're always worried about. And so it requires a level of maturity that you hope that the Jaguars have. You have to be tough enough mentally to handle when you have some bad breaks or you have a bad play. You got to play the next play. There is a bit of a fragile confidence that lingers around this team where you see them walking around hoping something good happens as opposed to being doggedly determined to make something happen. And look, it's the chicken or the egg debate. Do you get the confidence before you make the play, or do you make a play, then you have more confidence? Whatever it is, they need to be a more confident team, and they need to be very aggressive. If anything, if I'm Doug Peterson and I stand in front of the team, I'm like, let it go. Penalties be darned, turnovers be darned. Go play fast, go play hard, be physical, and whatever happens, happens. But they can't be passive and tentative in this game and get a win.
Yeah, Mike, you asked Bucky if he was concerned about that. I think it's the number one storyline of this game, how this team responds, how it plays early. If they get down 7-0, I think every Jaguars fan will say, well, here we go again, this one's over. The team has to prove that's not the case. They haven't responded well. They haven't been a team that has when it's absolutely been necessary, either late in games, early in games, when it's gotten away from them. They have not been a team that has reversed that moment. They haven't had any players who have stepped up and changed that momentum. Can they do that? I can't predict they'll do it because they haven't done it. But if they don't do it, the season's going to be over in a hurry.
Right, and an underrated road environment, too. It's a tough place to play, certainly when the Texans are playing well, as they are right now with a 2-1 record. Bucky, John, have a great day, and we'll talk to you a little bit later, guys. Thanks.
Mike, JP, thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Bucky Brooks, John Oehser. Check out the weekly Huddle Up with Bucky Brooks show Wednesdays at 4 on Jaguars.com and the Jaguars YouTube channel. We are closing in on Jaguars Radio Network coverage. Countdown to kickoff starting at noon Eastern. Up next, a fantasy forecast. Frank Frangie joins us from NRG Stadium. The Jags and the Texans in Week 4 coming up. And this is the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
It's game time, Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub-platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
It's storm season, and JEA is committed to keeping you informed. In the event of a storm, we'll text and email you about the status of your services. We use Facebook and Twitter to post real-time updates. Our live outage map on JEA.com lets you track restoration progress. And as crews work to restore services, our storm outreach team will be in local neighborhoods to answer your questions. Because as your community utility, JEA is here to keep you safe and connected. Your community, your utility.
Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Houston to take on the Texans this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's Fleming Island. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and The Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up a lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game. Unlock your potential at the University of North Florida. A beautiful campus with an inspiring environment for learning, UNF is a key partner to Florida's booming industries, providing students with direct access to internships and jobs. Set a new course at UNF and soar into your future. Visit unf.edu to learn more.
What makes that famous call
Dinner's ready!
even better? It's cooking a great meal with natural gas, enjoying faster cooking times and precise temperature control. And now getting a valuable cash rebate up to $300 when you install an energy-efficient natural gas range or cooktop.
Anyone want seconds?
When you show your home love with natural gas, it loves you right back. To learn more and how to qualify, visit peoplesgas.com/rebates.
Want to be up close and personal with the Jaguars as they take the field? Here's your chance to be in the shadows, outside the Jaguars locker room, now called the Vault. Enter today at everbank.com/shadows. One winner and a guest for every home game at EverBank Stadium. No purchase necessary to enter or win. Open to legal residents in 50 United States and D.C. 18 and older. Entry periods for the Shadow Sweepstakes promotion from 8/19/24 to 12/15/24. For official rules and complete details, visit everbank.com/shadows. Sponsored administrator, EverBank N.A. member FDIC.
This is the Publix Tailgate Show. JP Shadrick, Mike Dempsey from the Hyundai Studios at the Miller Electric Center. The Jaguars and the Texans coming up in NRG Stadium in Houston. The site, 1 o'clock Eastern kickoff time. Jaguars at 0-3. The Texans at 2-1. And a win for the Jags would get them within one game of the division lead. Lost for the Jaguars, and we'll have to discuss that in the post-game show. Let's get a fantasy forecast, Mike. What you got?
All right, well, the forecast is looking pretty good today for the guys coming in that were questionable, at least in the early games. We've already gotten a lot of reports that these guys are going to be up and fully active. Of course, in our game, Joe Mixon won't play, so that's a benefit for the Jaguars. New Orleans at Atlanta, both Alvin Kamara with a hip and rib issue and Chris Olave with a late-week hamstring issue were questionable coming in. Both are on the active roster for the Saints today, as is Keenan Allen for the Chicago Bears after missing the last couple of weeks. He gets to, hopefully for his fantasy managers, feast on what's been a shaky L.A. Rams defense. The Green Bay Packers will have Jordan Love back today, but there's a thought that they may have a package of plays for Malik Willis, who's played very well in leading the team to a 2-0 record in Love's absence. For me, I'm probably bumping Love down from his normal range. He's usually around quarterback 8, 9, or 10, maybe just outside the top 12, but you might not have a better option. So I think if the Packers feel good enough to put him out there, you can probably start him in your fantasy lineup today as well. Pittsburgh and Indianapolis, one guy who didn't make it is Jaylen Warren. The running back has been ruled out. It's a great matchup against Indianapolis for running back. So if you have Najee Harris, you got to make sure he's in the lineup this week to be sure. Not necessarily the case with Garrett Wilson and the New York Jets. He'll be matched up with Patrick Surtain Jr. of the Denver Broncos. And in 3 games, Surtain's primary responsibility has been DK Metcalf, George Pickens, and Mike Evans. Those 3 guys have totaled 75 yards receiving against the Denver Broncos this year. So Wilson scored his first touchdown of the Aaron Rodgers era last week. We'll see if he can break through against what's been mostly an impenetrable Surtain so far. Great matchup for the Jets running backs, however, with Denver's Alex Singleton going on IR. He is their leading tackler. For the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Both of their top 2 running backs were questionable coming into today. Rachaad White had food poisoning. He's gotten better quickly. Bucky Irving dealing with a hamstring issue. They're both active against Philadelphia. The Eagles, however, are without their top 2 wide receivers, as we knew that coming in, as you had Devontae Smith suffering a concussion last week, A.J. Brown dealing with a hamstring that's going to keep him out for another week. And Lane Johnson, the right tackle, also missing. The Eagles, how about this, 91-54 with 1 tie when Johnson's in the regular season lineup, 14-22 without him. So that's one to keep an eye on in Tampa. Deontay Johnson had a groin injury for Carolina, but is on the active list in a great matchup at home against Cincinnati. The highest over-under total today, Washington at Arizona. So if you're playing daily fantasy, that's a good game to target there. San Francisco expected to have Deebo Samuel returning today, as well as George Kittle. So don't count on Jawan Jennings having 11 catches for 175 yards and 3 touchdowns again for the second consecutive week as the 49ers host the Patriots. Devontae Adams ruled out for the Las Vegas Raiders against Cleveland. Cleveland, though, will have Jerome Ford. He is off the injury list and should start at running back for them. And Justin Herbert, despite a shaky and beat-up offensive line, expected to go, dealing with an ankle sprain as the L.A. Chargers host Kansas City in a late afternoon game.
The fantasy forecast is in for Week 4 from Mike Dempsey. We're about 10 minutes away from countdown to kickoff on the Jaguars Radio Network, presented by the University of Florida, the #1 university in the U.S. News & World Report's #1 state for education. Let's head to NRG Stadium in Houston. Welcome in Jags play-by-play announcer Frank Frangie. The time for talk is over, Frank. Well, we got an hour to talk until the time for talk is over for this Jaguars team. They got to get something done today. Good morning.
Good morning, JP, to you and Mike, and you're exactly right, and that's kind of been the theme. There's no more rah-rah. There's no more pep talks. Got to win a game. You've lost 3 in a row. The good news is you haven't played a division game yet, so go play a division game here, find a way to get a win, and then things feel better. But, yeah, it's a tough start. There's no getting around this. It's been a hard start. You knew it was going to be a tough 4-game schedule to start the season, JP. Everybody knew that. But you needed to find a way to grind 1 or 2 out. So this is a big one here in Houston, no question.
A simple formula, Frank. Just win games, right? And everything's going to be fine. But what is the formula to get there? If there's one thing the Jags need to do better today than they've been doing for the first 3 weeks, what do you think that is?
Start fast, Mike, when they have in their first possessions. There have been so many 3 and outs. 3 and out to start the game. 3 and out when you get the ball to start the second half. I think starting well, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, that's been the big thing. They did that in Miami and got off to a great start. They really haven't done it since, Mike. So I think the first possession you have the ball in the half, in the game, cannot be another 3 and out, because that has been a hindrance. I think that takes the juice out of the sideline. When you're at home, it takes the juice out of the crowd. When you're on the road, it fires up the opposing crowd. Mike, this is a loud place. It's going to get loud. The last thing you need to do is help them with a bad start offensively. No more 3 and outs to start the game. I think that's absolutely critical.
And tackle play, obviously offensive line as a whole, but let's just focus in on the tackle play. It has not been up to par yet this year. Cam Robinson, Anton Harrison, and the matchup they have today, it's not going to get easier. It's the NFL. It happens most every week. Today, those guys have to play elite football.
Yeah, there's no question that Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter, to your point, JP, are very good players. But, man, doesn't everybody have those guys now? We're 3 games in. They've already played Myles Garrett. They've already played Von Miller. It just seems like every time you play somebody, they've got rush ends now. So, yeah, the tackles have to play better. What wouldn't be surprised today, JP, to see if them help him a little bit? One thing about Brenton Strange and Luke Farrell, when they're in there together, they're both good blockers. I wouldn't be surprised to see them chip a little bit, because what they can't have now is Trevor Lawrence getting harassed by those great ends all day. The eye level comes down. He leaves the pocket early because he anticipates. You can't have that today. That's what's been going on, and it starts with protection. Even if they've got to help those guys a little bit, man, they got to protect it. They have no chance to win the game today if they don't protect and get the ball out better than they have been. So you're right about that. The tackles, they haven't played well. Cam Robinson hadn't played well. Anton Harrison probably played a little better last week, but the tackles haven't been great, and they've got to play better. No question about it.
You know, Frank, another team that's got some noteworthy pass rushers is the Jacksonville Jaguars, who had the pair with the most combined sacks in the league last year. Houston's given up 11 sacks to C.J. Stroud. That's only 1 less than Trevor Lawrence has suffered this year. Will that pass rush show up today?
It has to, Mike, and I hope so. one thing that's happened in these last couple games, starting with probably the fourth quarter of the Miami game, and then all of the last two games, is teams have been able to pass on their schedule. Deshaun Watson, they had a great drive to start the game, so they never were in situations. There weren't a lot of 3rd and 9s and 3rd and 10s in desperate situations. Obviously, Buffalo never got to any of those. So I think winning on 1st and 2nd down, putting teams in 3rd and medium at least or 3rd and long, they've got to do more of that. I think when that happens, then I think Josh Hines-Allen and Trayvon Walker could be factors. Until then, it's going to be hard to be as much of a factor. I think that's a large part of it. Now, look, those guys got to play better too. Everybody here has got to play. When you're 0-3 and you're one of only 3 winless teams in the league, you've got a bunch of guys who aren't playing very well. So those guys have to play better. But I think better 1st and 2nd down defense, better down and distance situations that will help the defense will help that a great deal.
Yeah, no takeaways. The only team in the league without one so far this season. And that's another point on this defense today. Foye Oluokun's out.
Yeah.
Devin Lloyd's inactive. Those are your 2 starting linebackers. Savage isn't playing still. Tyson Campbell's still out. Communication. Who's running the show out there today?
You know, that is a great question, JP. I would imagine Chad Muma will have the green dot. I don't know that. I think I was expecting. Normally Foyer's got it. Now I would think with him out, I thought Devin would have it. I'm guessing Chad Muma will run the defense on the field, but I don't know that, and that's a real concern, man. Your veteran physical players, your 2 linebackers, Savage, who's a nickel, who also is kind of a safety, Dewey, who hadn't played all year long, who's a veteran safety. Those are older veteran guys who are good tacklers and good physical players, all gone. So that is there's no question that's a major concern. And look, I'm a big believer. I told you guys this last week, I think. JP, I'm a big believer that one of the reasons they're not getting takeaways is you've got so many young guys out there, and young guys are just trying not to get beat. Now, young guys aren't as likely to have the knack of when to break on the ball or when to try and strip the ball. They're just trying to do their job because they're not used to being out there. So the more young players you play, the less chance I think you have to get the ball away from the offense. So, yeah, it's a tough way, man. Not having Devin Lloyd on a day you're already not going to have Foye Oluokun is a big blow for this defense. It's disingenuous to say it any other way.
Well, Frank, we're counting on you today to
come on.
To get this
I'm here.
done,
I'm
okay?
here. We're here. I don't know about the rest of them, but we're here, fellas. I can tell you that.
Frank Frangie, have a great call, man.
Thanks, boys.
From NRG Stadium in Houston, up next is Jaguars Radio Network coverage with Countdown to Kickoff. We'll hear from Fred Taylor and the final word before kick with head coach Doug Peterson. Jags Texans coming up. Thanks for listening to the Publix Tailgate Show on Jaguars Radio.
Jaguars fans, and Publix knows that football is all about pairings. A high-scoring offense paired with a stingy defense. A rocket-armed QB paired with a dynamic wide receiver. And at Publix, you can pair hot deli chicken tenders with savory dips, delicious sub-platters with ice-cold beverages, and you can pair these tailgate essentials with an entire parking lot full of Jaguars fans chanting, Duval! Gear up for your tailgate at Publix, the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Sims Crane and Equipment is the Southeast premier crane rental company since 1959, serving Florida, Georgia, and Alabama with cranes up to 800 ton for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is the Tadano rough terrain crane dealer for the state of Florida. Inspired by the past, committed to the future. Choose Sims Crane and Equipment for all of your heavy lifting needs. Sims Crane is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Cheer on your Jaguars as they travel to Houston to take on the Texans this Sunday at the official away game watch party at Mr. Chubby's Fleming Island. Indulge in the biggest and best wings in town with appearances by Jackson DeVille and the Roar. You'll even get the chance to win autographed items and game tickets, all while soaking up a lively atmosphere with fellow Jags fans. Mr. Chubby's Wings, proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game. At Publix, you can tackle everything from pregame prep to postgame cleanup with prices that are never out of bounds. This week at Publix, save $10 with a digital coupon when you spend $40 on select P&G products. Tackle everything from pregame prep with brands like Crest, Head & Shoulders, and Old Spice to postgame cleanup with brands like Bounty, Dawn, Tide, and Febreze. Clip your digital coupon now. Available at Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
Today's highlight is brought to you by Toyota. At home or on the road, they're never the underdog. Toyota. Let's go places. Get $2,000 in loyalty cash bonus on a new Toyota Tundra. Offer valid through September 30th, 2024. Offer entitles current Tundra customers to $2,000 loyalty cash bonus on the retail purchase or lease of a new Tundra gas or hybrid vehicle. Bonus cash may be used only toward a down payment or capitalized cost reduction on the new vehicle. See dealer for details.
Ancient City Brewing is celebrating 30 years of Jags football by becoming the proud craft beer partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what better way to celebrate a throwback year than to throw back some of their expertly crafted beers? From Augustine's Orange Amber Ale to their Castillo Coconut Porter, there's always something new to discover at Ancient City Brewing, including the new First and Gold Golden Ale, coming soon to a Duval County store near you. Ancient City Brewing, taste history, make history, and please always drink responsibly.